Haste makes waste. That's our proverb and our idiom today. Sharon Horne-Ellstrom here. And this is an idiom or an expression that I guarantee I have heard many, many times in my life. I've also used many times in my life. This one's been around since about 1575. It was recorded and it appeared in John Ray's 1678 collection of Proverbs. Nicholas Udall translated it. I believe it was in probably Greek or Roman or something in the earlier times, but it was translated by him and appeared in that anthem. Ever since then, we have been using it as a way to describe doing something too quickly can cause us to make mistakes, waste resources, or do something that costs us time, money, energy, effort, materials, or things ending up being wasted. Every business, every industry. I come from a manufacturing background, so waste, and in the paper industry, in toilet paper manufacturing, as a matter of fact, we called it broke. Broke was our term for waste in that industry. Each industry has its own terminology and definition, but basically it's stuff that you either find a place to or a way to repurpose or recycle, or it ends up having to go to a landfill. Or in the bakery industry, we actually turned it into pig food. It was made into pig food. We also tried to give some away to charities, but that was a bigger struggle than I had ever anticipated. So haste makes waste. What's my most glaring example of this in my personal life, or in my life, in my career, and my work experience is, I've got a couple, I've got a lot of examples, but I tend to run through life and then figure things out on the way. And so early on in my life and my career, I would make quick decisions, and it's important to be able to make fast decisions sometimes, but some things need to be done quickly. Other things need to follow a process and a procedure and a system and a method, and still other things need to take time. They need to ruminate. We need to work on them and think about them and consider them before we take action. Well, one of my most horrifying moments in corporate America, and probably just the most horrifying to me, was I'd get up really early in the morning and I'd get ready for work, and I didn't want to wake my husband or my kids up, so I would sometimes, and I only did this once, would go into my closet and not turn on the light and grab my shoes. Well, back in my suits and pumps days, I had suits of every color and shoes of every color that matched the suits, right? Well, I was wearing a navy blue suit, and I thought I grabbed navy blue shoes, but as it was about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon before I noticed. I looked down at my feet, and it turns out I had on a navy blue pump and a black pump. And I had done a presentation, I had done a quality training for a group of executives. I'd been to 3 customer sites that day before I realized that I actually had on 2 different colored pumps and shoes. And nobody mentioned it to me. And so I don't know if they didn't notice or if they were just being polite, but that goes down as one of my most embarrassing stories of hurrying up, being, in too much of a rush to turn on the light and verify that I had the right color shoes on. And then I didn't even look at my feet all day and I never noticed. But that's my personal blaring example of haste makes waste. How long would it have taken to flip on the light, grab the right color shoes, and not make that mistake again? Well, what did I do about it? I created a system and a process that I wouldn't ever make that mistake again, right? Could have been as easy as turning on the light, but I overcomplicated it, and I love processes and systems, so I created a system of where things went in my closet with respect to colors and shoes, so I would never make that mistake again. And every time I took my shoes off, I put everything back in the place that it belonged. So how does this impact our businesses? How can this impact our businesses in big ways? Measuring broke and measuring waste is something that we always tracked in manufacturing and in my manufacturing businesses as well as in other businesses. Every business should know how they're utilizing their resources. Are they using their resources wisely? And those resources include not just raw materials and ingredients like in the ravioli making business, but it involves time and effort and energy and all the other things that go into creating the products and services that we provide to people, the solutions that we provide to them. So we want to make sure we have processes and systems for the things that it makes sense to. Our hiring process, early on in my manufacturing business, my personal one, the Italian food manufacturing business, I didn't have a strong hiring procedure. what happened is I would need a person, I would hire quickly, and most of the time we made the right decision, but only on one occasion. I only remember hiring one person that absolutely positively could not make ravioli. I didn't think it was possible, but because our processes and systems were so well defined, but we mutually agreed that it wasn't the right fit for this gentleman. And it's funny, it was somebody I'd known for a long time, and so we thought they'd be a good fit, but it just was not a good personality and pace and everything else fit for that person. But often in our hiring processes, if we don't have a process or a procedure, we hire when we're in a dire need of having more help in a person, and we don't do all the things that we should do and we know we should do when we're bringing someone into our organization. We don't research, we don't do our homework, we don't, and this can apply to not only hiring people, but picking projects, doing changes and making changes in our organization. If we don't do our research, if we don't do our homework, if we don't do our due diligence, if we don't look at references, do background checks, and all the things we know we should do, we can make hiring mistakes. People can look awesome on paper. Done this with a business partner. Picked a business partner, looked awesome, everything seemed amazing, trusted my ex-husband and didn't do my due diligence, and it turns out it was one of the biggest mistakes we'd ever made, was going into business with this particular person. But lessons learned to have a process, have a system, and then follow it no matter what. Even if we're in a hurry, certain things are so important that you have to take your time with them and make your decision with them. In the ravioli business, we had something called splitters, and we were desperate for help. We had big orders, and we hired some people based from a temp agency to come in and help us make ravioli. We had the highest level, even with training and working side by side with them, we had the highest number of what we call splitters and the worst performing week of our life by bringing in temporary people. And we learned that it's better to work longer hours with experienced people, train people up to the level of understanding and following the processes and procedures, so that we didn't have, we call them splitters, we didn't have splitters, and we didn't have waste, things that were products and services that we couldn't sell because they didn't meet our quality standards and our customers' quality standards, what our customers expected from us. Rushing in any way, shape, or form often leads to challenges, waste, problems, broke. Think of relationships. Would you ever ask someone to marry you on the first date? No, that's kind of rushing it, at least with respect to the relationships I've been involved in our life. When we're kids, I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, I couldn't wait to grow up and be an adult, only to find out that, oh my God, some things in adulthood stink. Some things are hard to be an adult about. I mean, I have to take care of everything myself. I have to be responsible for everything myself. I have to pay all my bills. I have to figure out how I'm going to survive my life as an adult. Absolutely, we hurry and we rush, and sometimes we make mistakes when we're trying to act like an adult when we're really not ready to. I think as teenagers, we've probably, many of us, experienced that. I know I have, not huge mistakes, but little mistakes along the way just because we're rushing to grow up. Ben Franklin actually is also attributed to saying haste makes waste a lot of the time, but he actually said great haste makes great waste. So he embellished the idiom, the proverb, a little bit. But Ben Franklin gets credit for saying a lot of things. So it's interesting to research and find out, did he really say that? Or was it indeed someone else much earlier, and he used it as well? And that's cool, because that means that's how these idioms and these expressions and these sayings and these proverbs get traction, is because we can relate to them, we can apply them to our life. Haste makes waste is a great way to teach people and hold them accountable to following processes and procedures. Again, in the Italian food manufacturing business, we developed continually better processes and procedures and ways of doing things all the time. And sometimes we'd develop a new way of doing something, and somebody would not want to follow that. They would want to fall back to the old way of doing something. Well, in the food business, recipes and processes and procedures and timers and systems and methods of doing things are very, very important, especially because it involves people's health, something that people are going to ingest. It's critical that we make sure that we're following our quality processes and procedures. And sometimes they would want to tweak the recipes in measuring things. It's important to measure accurately, and sometimes people wouldn't want to do that, and we would end up then again with more waste, more splitters, more time and energy lost, because we would have to go back and remake a dough or remake a filling or redo something. I remember in the bakery industry, sometimes there'd be a labeling issue. Somebody would label something wrong, and we would have to go back through all of the cases of cookies or all of the bread and then repackage and relabel it so that it would be right before it went out the door. That was a waste of time and energy and effort and resources. Although I did learn a very cool trick of how to open boxes and cases from one of the employees. And I asked, how do you know how to do this? How did you come up with this idea? And he's like, because I've had to do a lot of rework. And so, lesson learned, there's always an upside to even having to do rework. So I would love to know your personal experience with this haste waste. I tend to move really fast, and so I fall and trip and have little accidents. And I think that's because I'm rushing to do things, and I joke that I'm klutzy, but I think it's always because I'm just in a hurry and I'm moving too fast. And sometimes I need to just take a deep breath and slow down. And remember, haste makes waste, and falling down, the older I get, the less I like falling down. So share in the comments below your experience with this particular proverb. And I will, of course, be with you tomorrow with another interesting idiom, what it means, where did it come from, and how might you use it in your business and your life right now. Take care. Bye.